Thanksgiving dinner. 30 people gathered around one table, laughing, passing food, pretending everything was perfect. Then my dad suddenly stood up. He looked straight at me and said, "He stole money from us." The room went silent. Every eye turned toward me, judging, cold, already convinced. My mom lowered her head like she was heartbroken, and whispers started spreading. I knew something was wrong with him. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. I didn't take anything I said, trying to stay calm. But no one believed me. And right then, I realized, this wasn't just an accusation. This was a setup. I've always been the problem child in my family. At least, that's what they liked to call me. My older brother was everything they ever wanted: smart, responsible, always doing the right thing. He got the praise, the attention, the trust. Me? I got the blame. If something went missing in the house, they'd look at me first. If there was an argument, somehow it was my fault. Even when I stayed quiet, I was still the one causing trouble. After a while, you stop trying to defend yourself. Because no matter what you say, it doesn't change anything. I remember once when some cash went missing from my dad's drawer. I didn't even know about it until he came straight to my room, accusing me like it was already proven. No questions, no discussion, just judgment. And that look, that disappointed look in his eyes, like I had already failed him again. That stayed with me. Over time, I learned to keep my distance. Less talking, less explaining, less hoping they'd understand me one day. But deep down, it still hurt. Because no matter how much they doubted me, they were still my family. And a part of me kept thinking, maybe one day, they'd finally see me for who I really was. I just didn't know. That day would come like this. My dad's hand slammed hard against the table, the sound echoing through the room like a warning shot. "Just admit it," he said, his voice cold and controlled. "We know it was you." My heart was pounding so loud it felt like everyone could hear it. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't take anything I said again, louder this time. But the moment the words left my mouth, I knew it didn't matter. My mom covered her face, her shoulders shaking like she was crying. That one move shifted the entire room. Now it wasn't just about missing money. Now it looked like I had hurt her. And that made me the villain. Voices started rising around the table. Low at first, then louder. "Why would your parents lie? Just tell the truth, it'll be easier. This is embarrassing for everyone." I looked around, hoping, just hoping, someone would question it. That someone would say, "Wait, what if he's telling the truth?" But no one did. Not a single person. My dad leaned closer, his eyes locked onto mine. "You've always been like this," he said quietly. "Always causing problems." That hit harder than anything else. Not because it was loud, but because it wasn't. It was calm, certain, final. I felt something inside me snap. Not anger, not fear, something colder. Because in that moment, I realized they had already decided who I was. This wasn't about finding the truth. This was about proving them right. Then my dad straightened up and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "If you didn't do it, then prove it." The room went quiet again. All eyes back on me. Waiting, watching, judging. And that's when everything changed. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence in the room felt heavy, almost suffocating. All eyes were still on me, waiting for me to break, to panic, to confess to something I didn't do. But I didn't. Instead, I took a slow breath and stood up. The chair scraped softly against the floor, the sound cutting through the silence. A few people shifted in their seats. Others leaned forward, curious now. This wasn't the reaction they were expecting. My hands were steady. Not because I wasn't nervous, but because I was done being afraid. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. It wasn't anything special to look at, plain, slightly creased at the edges. But the moment it appeared in my hand, the energy in the room shifted. Confusion replaced certainty. My dad frowned. "What is that?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I just looked around the table, at every single face that had already judged me. Then I said, calmly, "You want proof, right?" A couple of relatives exchanged glances. Someone let out a quiet laugh, like this was about to get embarrassing for me. They still thought I was bluffing, that I was trying to stall, buy time, or create some kind of distraction. But I wasn't. Because inside that envelope was something I had been holding onto for days. I hadn't planned to use it like this. Not in front of everyone. Not like some kind of public showdown. But they didn't leave me a choice. I had found out the truth a few days ago by accident. A small detail that didn't make sense at first. Then another. And another. Until everything started connecting. At first, I didn't even want to believe it. Because if it was true, then the person they trusted the most was the one who had been lying all along. I looked back at my dad. His expression had changed now, less confident, more impatient. "Stop playing games," he said. I nodded slightly. "I'm not," I replied. My fingers moved to the edge of the envelope. The room grew still again. No whispers. No movement. Just anticipation. Because whether they realized it or not, everything they believed was about to be tested. I slid my finger under the flap and slowly opened the envelope. The sound of paper tearing was soft, but in that silence, it felt loud. Every eye was locked on me. I reached inside and pulled out a stack of documents. For a second, no one reacted. They were still waiting for me to fail. But I didn't. I held the papers up just enough for everyone to see and said calmly, "The money didn't disappear." A few confused looks spread across the table. It was transferred. Now the whispers stopped completely. I placed the first sheet down on the table and turned it toward them. "Bank statements," I said. "Dates, amounts, everything." My dad leaned forward, his brows tightening. My mom slowly lifted her head. I flipped to the next page. "Transaction records," I continued. "Same day the money went missing." You could feel the tension building. Then I said the one thing no one expected. It didn't go to some stranger. I paused, just long enough for it to sink in. Then I pointed across the table. It went to him. Straight at my brother. The room froze. Not quiet. Frozen. Like time had stopped for a second. My brother didn't move. Didn't blink. He just stared at the papers like he didn't recognize them. "That's not possible," my dad said quickly. But his voice didn't sound as sure anymore. I pulled out another sheet. "It is," I said. I slid it across the table. Account number matches. Transfer confirmed. Now people were leaning in. Actually looking. Actually reading. And then came the final piece. I reached into the envelope one more time and took out a printed transcript. "And this," I said quietly, "is the part one didn't want to believe." My brother finally spoke. "What is that?" But I didn't answer him. I looked at my dad instead. "It's a recording," I said, converted into text. My dad's expression shifted. I placed it on the table. "Read it." No one moved at first. Then my aunt picked it up. Her eyes scanned the page. And within seconds, her face changed. Asterisk, "Oh my God," she whispered. Because right there, in black and white, was my brother's voice. Admitting everything. Why he took the money. How he thought he wouldn't get caught. Every detail. No excuses left. No lies to hide behind. The truth was right there. And just like that, the story they believed in collapsed completely. For a few seconds, no one said anything. The room didn't just go quiet. It felt frozen. Like everyone was trying to process what they had just seen. And failing. My mom's hands slowly dropped from her face. The tears stopped instantly, like someone had flipped a switch. She stared at the papers on the table. Then at my brother. Her expression blank, almost unrecognizable. My dad didn't move at all. The same man who had been so loud, so certain just moments ago, was now completely silent. His eyes moved from the documents to me, and then back again. Like he was searching for something, a mistake, a flaw, anything to hold on to. But there was nothing. Across the table, my brother finally reacted. This is fake," he said quickly. But his voice didn't carry the same confidence it used to. It cracked. No one backed him up. Not this time. Relatives who had been whispering about me just minutes ago were now whispering again. But the tone had changed. "I can't believe this. He really did that? All this time?" One of my aunts covered her mouth in shock. Another uncle leaned back in his chair, shaking his head slowly. The same people who judged me without hesitation now couldn't even meet my eyes. The weight of what they had done was finally hitting them. My mom took a small step toward my brother. "Tell me this isn't true," she said softly. But he didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the truth was already sitting on the table. Clear. Undeniable. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy. Filled with guilt. Shock. And regret. And in the middle of it all, I just stood there, not saying anything, because for the first time, I didn't need to. I let the silence sit for a moment longer. No anger, no shouting, no need. I slowly looked around the table, at every face that had judged me without hesitation. All of you believed it, I said calmly. Not one of you stopped to ask if it was true. No one responded. They couldn't, because they knew I was right. I glanced at my dad, the same man who had just accused me in front of everyone. Now couldn't even look me in the eye. You didn't want the truth, I continued. You just wanted someone to blame. My voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Every word landed. I turned slightly toward my mom. Her eyes were filled with something different now, not disappointment, regret. But it didn't change anything. I didn't come here to argue, I said. And I didn't come here for an apology. I placed the documents neatly on the table. I came here to clear my name. That was it. No dramatic exit. No final argument. Just truth. I stepped back from the table, grabbed my jacket, and started walking toward the door. No one stopped me. No one said a word. And honestly, that silence said more than anything they could have. I reached the door and paused. My hand rested on the handle for a second longer than it needed to. Something made me look back. 30 people, still sitting there. Frozen. Silent. The same room that was full of laughter just minutes ago now felt completely different. Heavy. My parents sat at the center of it all, speechless. My dad stared at the table, avoiding everything. My mom looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. And my brother. He just sat there, exposed. No excuses left. No one to hide behind. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just clarity. Because in that moment, I finally understood something. The truth doesn't need noise. It doesn't need anger. It just needs the right moment. I opened the door and walked out, not as the problem child, not as the one they blamed, but as someone who finally proved who he really was.